And welcome back to Law and Crime. We're going to switch gears right now and talk about the former Dallas police officer Amber Guyger's sentence. Guyger shot and killed Botham Jean when she mistook her apartment for his and killed him. Let's show you that sentence right now that was handed down yesterday.
I will now announce it. We, the jury, find unanimously that the defendant did not cause the death of Botham Jean while under the immediate influence of sudden passion arising from an adequate cause, and assess the defendant's punishment at 10 years imprisonment in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. In addition, we assess a fine of $0, and it's signed by the presiding juror. Would you like to have the jury poll?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any legal reason why this sentence should not now be imposed?
By the law.
It is therefore the order, judgment, and decree of the court that you be taken by the Sheriff of Dallas County and safely transported by her to an agent or representative of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and there you shall be confined until your sentence is discharged. Your sentence will begin today, and you will receive credit for any back time that you have. That being concluded, you may be seated, Ms. Guyger.
Okay, so that is Amber Guyger's sentencing there at 10 years. Right now, Law and Crime's Aaron Keller is live in our newsroom. He has an update for us on this case. Aaron?
Angelica, thanks. Of course, reaction to this case continuing to pour in on social media, on channels including ours across the country and indeed across the globe. So much to talk about with that verdict that we watched live last night and just reviewed again. Joining me now, Dallas District Attorney John Creuzot. District Attorney, thank you so much for joining us live with your reaction. You were there in that courthouse yesterday. You are the top prosecutor in Dallas, Texas. I know you reacted yesterday by saying that the family respects this verdict. You've had time to think about it now, almost 24 hours since that came down. Any new thoughts as we sit here today?
Not really. I think that the son or the brother who testified, I think, showed the best qualities of his brother, who is unfortunately deceased, when he embraced Amber Guyger. As far as the sentence itself is concerned, we respect the jury's decision. We had a diverse jury from across the county. They heard all of the evidence and they made their decision based on the facts of the case, and we respect that.
This was a case that ultimately landed in your lap. You were elected in the midst of this prosecution, so you had to sort of pick things up. And I know at one point, and I don't mean any disrespect by asking it, but there was a rebuke from the judge about a gag order. Do you care to address any of that at this point now that the sentence is in?
Well, it was unfortunate that the defense chose to deal with that in the manner in which they did. But no one has actually looked at the gag order. I did not violate the gag order. In fact, I think probably for the sake of the public, maybe we ought to have a hearing on this and get it all out, because number one, all I said was I thought the murder charge was appropriate, and that is well within public comment. I have a First Amendment right to say that, and it did not violate specific provisions of the gag order. The other thing I said was that I had no idea how the jury would see the case or what the verdict would be.
I mean, certainly these issues of what you can and can't say outside court are sometimes hot button issues, but generally speaking, under the rules of professional conduct, you can say what's a matter of public record, and it sounds like that's what you're saying here.
That's exactly right. And in addition to that, I had written a piece on this case back during the election when there was first a controversy about whether it was murder or manslaughter, and I explained all of that, including her defensive issues. So it's a matter of public record, and so I didn't do anything to violate the gag order.
Let's talk a little bit now, rather, about some of those pictures we saw yesterday. You talked about the hug between the victim's brother and the defendant. It was a moving moment. It received a lot of positive reaction on social media. Have you been following some of that?
A little bit, yes.
And I know that many people were moved by it, but also the judge was in tears during that moment on the bench. You could see her for just a moment. Much of the reaction very positive for the judge as well. I have to ask you about that because you've been a prosecutor. You've also been a judge. You've been in private practice. The judge herself broke down in that moment. And then the judge, after this all ended, went over and hugged the victim's family and then hugged the defendant. Have you ever seen anything like that in all of your diverse roles as an attorney, as a prosecutor, as a judge?
Well, yes and no. I mean, first of all, when I was watching it in my office, I too had tears in my eyes, as did everyone here in my office. So I think there were a lot of tears in the courtroom that you couldn't see. The other thing, have I in the past, I spent 22 years as a judge. Yes, I've embraced families, and not in the same manner, but yes, I've embraced defendants who I felt, when I felt it was appropriate.
And in what moments is it appropriate?
Well, I mean, it's a very tough thing to kill someone, and under these circumstances, he's gone, he's dead, and he won't come back. And on the other hand, I don't think there was any evidence that showed that she's an inherently bad person. And what she did was criminally wrong, but the judge obviously felt that she was not an evil person, and she responded what I feel was in an appropriate way. I don't have any problems with what the judge did.
And most of the reaction we've seen on social media has been overwhelmingly positive. There have been a few critics, though, that have said, well, gee, does the judge hug every defendant? And said that it raised questions about impartiality from the bench. You don't agree with that criticism?
No, the case was over when she did that. There was nothing more to decide on the case. The sentence had been handed down, and I don't think it was inappropriate for her to handle both entities, the family and the defendant, that way.
And then at the tail end, we saw the judge go and retrieve what we believe to be her personal copy of the Christian Bible and present that to the defendant herself and tell her, look, I think that you should read John 3:16. You should dig into this over the next month. Those, as I understand, were the judge's words. I know that you're in a deeply Christian area in that part of the country, but some people might look at that and say, you know, again, is that appropriate for a judge? How would you respond to what you saw happen in that instance?
Well, personally, having spent 22 years as a judge, I would not have done that. But on the other hand, I respect the right of this judge to do it and to communicate in that manner. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything unconstitutional about it. I don't think there's anything unethical about it. And I would support this judge if anyone filed a complaint against her. I would seek to intervene to support her.
There's a big conversation in the United States these days about criminal justice reform and making sure that people who are convicted are reformed, not punished. Do you think that as the nation watched this case, that this might be the case that sets the tone for how that might happen?
Well, I would not want the reformation of the criminal justice system to rest on the shoulders of one case. I think that's a greater conversation. I think what this is about is forgiveness and other issues like that, not necessarily criminal justice reform.
I want to ask your opinion about how this may play out from here. I think the judge, from my perspective sitting here, gave the defense a lot of leeway with jury instructions and things of that nature. The defense basically got what it asked for as far as jury instructions, but there were a couple of things that the defense wasn't happy about. The defense wanted the venue moved to another location to presumably create a more fair trial. The defense didn't get that. The defense wanted to be able to ask a number of experts about whether or not the defendant's conduct was legally reasonable or not reasonable. And the judge said, look, that's an ultimate issue for the jury. That's what the rules of evidence say the decision should be as far as that. Let's assume, just for the sake of argument, that there is an appeal. And let's assume, again, hypothetically, that the appeal is successful. If this case is retried, could Amber Guyger potentially face a higher sentence than 10 years, or would a hypothetical sentence be capped at the 10 years on this? States are different about that. How does Texas do it?
Well, it depends on how she seeks to have her punishment assessed. If she goes back to a jury, my understanding is that she would be open to the full range of punishment. And so it would depend on her decision if she wanted the judge or the jury to assess the punishment in the case.
So opening the door up for a certain type of appeal could potentially backfire for this defendant.
Possibly.
Reaction again has come into this from across the country, and I even receive reaction from across the globe. People watching this, remembering this. As you sit there as the top prosecutor in Dallas, Texas, how do you want people in your jurisdiction, in your state, in your country, and across the world to remember this specific case?
Well, I think that this case stands for the proposition that everyone will be held accountable, and we will investigate cases equally, and we will present them fairly to a grand jury, and we will try them in a very fair manner. But it doesn't make any difference what your profession is or who you are. We're going to handle it appropriately and fairly, and we think that a Dallas County jury did the same thing. And so we're very proud of our own conduct here in the office, and we're very proud of the conduct of the jury, who, of course, are representatives as citizens of this community.
And many people, again, praising the conduct of the family of Botham Jean in this case. That image, I think, that will hang in many memories for a long time is that image of the brother embracing the defendant who was convicted of murder. That might be the image that sticks with many people. Is that going to be the image that sticks with you?
Absolutely, yes. It's just amazing that that young man could find that amount of forgiveness and love in his heart towards someone who killed his brother. And once again, I would like to think that the best qualities of his brother were showing through him at that moment.
There is law and there is forgiveness, and we saw both in this case. Dallas District Attorney John Creuzot, we appreciate you joining us live here on the Law and Crime Network this afternoon. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We will be right back here on the Law and Crime Network after this break.